The rain in Glasgow always seemed to fall at an angle, as if the wind itself was a mischievous child, tugging at umbrellas and coats. On that particular morning in 2013, Sam Heughan stood outside the studio lot with his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. He was about to walk into an audition that would change his life forever. The role of Jamie Fraser in a new series called Outlander had been buzzing through the industry for months, and something about it felt bigger than anything he'd done before. Inside the casting room, Caitriona Balfe waited for her own call. She was new to acting, at least in the eyes of television producers, but her eyes burned with the quiet determination of someone who had lived a dozen lives already. She had been told to read opposite a handful of men auditioning for Jamie, but when Sam entered, something shifted. It wasn't just chemistry for the screen, it was an electricity neither of them could fully name. Their first read together was awkward in the way first dances are awkward, full of steps and pauses, yet everyone in the room felt a pull. When the director called cut, Sam and Caitriona looked at each other, and the tiniest flicker of a smile passed between them. It was nothing, it was everything. Over the next few weeks, contracts were signed, fittings scheduled, and press releases drafted. Sam Heughan was officially Jamie Fraser. Caitriona Balfe was Claire Randall. Two strangers about to become one of television's most beloved on-screen couples. Neither of them could have imagined the way fans would fall in love with their characters, or the way the line between performance and reality would blur for them. Filming in the Scottish Highlands was a dream for everyone involved. Endless green hills, lochs like shards of glass, castles standing against time. But long days on set forged bonds that were more than professional. Sam and Caitriona shared lunches on mossy stones, laughed at the same jokes, and learned each other's rhythms the way dancers do. They built trust for the sake of the show, but underneath that trust something warmer began to glow. Caitriona would later describe those first months as, like walking through a doorway you didn't know was open. Sam called it, a kind of homecoming. But neither of them dared to articulate it aloud. Both were fiercely protective of their private lives, and both knew how quickly Hollywood gossip could turn friendship into rumor. The show premiered to rapturous acclaim. Critics hailed their chemistry as electric and undeniable. Fan forums exploded with theories that their on-screen passion had to be real. Sam and Caitriona smiled through interviews, deflecting questions with practiced charm. But late at night, in their separate trailers or hotel rooms, they each stared at the ceiling and wondered what they were doing. For Sam, fame had always been a dream edged with caution. He had seen what it could do to actors, the isolation, the speculation, the way it could swallow your real self. For Caitriona, who had walked away from a modeling career to pursue something more authentic, the sudden spotlight was both thrilling and terrifying. Together, they navigated premieres, talk shows, and photo shoots. Together, they built the illusion of Jamie and Claire's timeless love. And somewhere along the way, the illusion began to feel like a heartbeat. One rainy evening after a particularly grueling shoot, Sam found Caitriona sitting on a bench outside the makeup trailer, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked up at him with tired eyes and said, "Do you ever feel like we're living two lives?" Sam sat beside her, silent for a moment, listening to the rain on the canvas awning above. "All the time," he admitted. "But when I'm in a scene with you, it feels real." Caitriona's lips curved into a sad smile. "That's the danger, isn't it?" Neither of them spoke after that. The rain fell, the crew bustled in the distance, and for one fragile moment, they sat in a silence that said more than words could. They didn't know it yet, But that moment, that quiet acknowledgement of something unsaid, would be the first crack in the wall they had built between glory and reality. And as Outlander grew into a phenomenon, as awards and headlines piled up, the gap between who they were on screen and who they were off it would widen. In the middle of that gap, they would be forced to confront not only their feelings but also the cost of living in a story that wasn't entirely fiction. The second season of Outlander had moved production to Prague for several months. The city's cobblestone streets and Gothic spires were a far cry from the wind-swept highlands, but the sense of isolation was the same. Cast and crew became a makeshift family, spending long nights together after exhausting shoots. It was in those in-between spaces, hotel bars, quiet car rides, costume fittings, that Sam and Caitriona began to drift closer. They still kept their private lives separate, at least on paper. Caitriona would return to her apartment and call friends back in Ireland. Sam would disappear into the gym or go running along the Vltava River. But between those routines were stolen minutes that felt like stepping into another world. Sometimes it was as simple as sharing a cup of tea in her trailer before dawn call times. Sometimes it was walking back from set together in the blue hush of early morning, their breath clouding in the cold air, no words necessary. Caitriona would catch herself memorizing the lines of Sam's face, the way his expression softened when he was tired, the laugh that came from deep in his chest. Sam noticed the way Caitriona's eyes lit up when she was passionate about a scene, the way she bit her lip when she was thinking. He tried not to notice, but he couldn't help it. There was one evening, late in the shoot, when Sam knocked on her door carrying 2 glasses of wine. "Just one," he said with a grin. "We survived another week." They sat on the floor of her apartment, scripts scattered around them like fallen leaves. They talked about everything but themselves, the show, the fans, the surreal nature of success. Yet beneath the conversation pulsed a silence, heavy with things unsaid. Caitriona looked at him over the rim of her glass and whispered, "Do you ever think about what people believe about us?" Sam shrugged. "All the time. But it's easier not to feed it. And what if," she hesitated, "what if we start believing it ourselves?" The question hung between them like smoke. Sam's heart raced, but he forced a laugh. "Then we're in trouble, aren't we?" They changed the subject, but neither forgot that moment. In the days that followed, Sam found himself avoiding her gaze during intimate scenes. Caitriona caught herself pulling back from his touch just a fraction of a second too soon. The chemistry was still there, if anything, stronger, but it had become dangerous. They were playing with a fire neither of them could afford to ignite. Back home, rumors began to swirl. Tabloids speculated endlessly about their relationship. Fans scoured interviews for hidden messages. Sam and Caitriona became experts at dodging questions, at laughing off insinuations. But late at night, alone, each of them scrolled through the headlines with a mixture of dread and longing. In one of those sleepless nights, Caitriona wrote in her journal, "Between glory and reality, where do we stand?" She closed the book, turned off the light, and tried to convince herself it was just a job. But the ache in her chest told a different story. Sam, meanwhile, confided in a friend from drama school. "I don't know what's happening," he admitted over the phone. "I care about her, more than I should, but I can't risk everything. Not for something I can't even name." The friend said quietly, "Sometimes you don't choose the story. The story chooses you." As filming wrapped in Prague, both Sam and Caitriona felt a strange sense of relief and loss. They hugged goodbye at the airport, a long, unspoken embrace that seemed to carry all the words they hadn't dared say. Cameras flashed, fans cheered, and they smiled for the crowd, slipping once more into the roles the world expected of them. But behind the smiles, they both knew the truth. Whatever was happening between them was no longer just an on-screen illusion. It was a living thing, fragile and dangerous, growing in the shadows between the public and private lives. And sooner or later, it would demand to be acknowledged.